the Metropolitan Tabernacle pulpit. Memory, the handmaid of hope. A sermon delivered on Sunday morning, October 15th, 1865, by C.H. Spurgeon at the Metropolitan Tabernacle, Newington. Lamentations 3:21. This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. Memory is very often the servant of despondency. Despairing minds call to remembrance every dark foreboding in the past and every gloomy feature in the present. Memory stands like a handmaiden clothed in sackcloth, presenting to her master a cup of mingled gall and wormwood. Like Mercury, she hastes with winged heel to gather fresh thorns with which to fill the uneasy pillow, and to bind fresh rods with which to scourge the already bleeding heart. There is, however, no necessity for this. Wisdom will transform memory into an angel of comfort. That same recollection which may in its left hand bring so many dark and gloomy omens may be trained to bear in its right hand a wealth of hopeful signs. She need not wear a crown of iron. She may encircle her brow with a fillet of gold, all spangled with stars. When Christian, according to Bunyan, was locked up in Doubting Castle, memory formed the crab-tree cudgel with which the famous giant beat his captives so terribly. They remembered how they had left the right road, how they had been warned not to do so, and how in rebellion against their better selves they wandered into by-path meadow. They remembered all their past misdeeds, their sins, their evil thoughts and evil words, and all these were so many knots in the cudgel, causing sad bruises and wounds in their poor, suffering persons. But one night, according to Bunyan, this same memory which had scourged them helped to set them free. For she whispered something in Christian's ear, and he cried out as one half amazed, "What a fool am I, to lie in a stinking dungeon when I may as well walk at liberty. I have a key in my bosom called Promise, that will, I am persuaded, open any lock in Doubting Castle." So he put his hand into his bosom. With much joy he plucked out the key and thrust it into the lock. And though the lock of the great iron gate, as Bunyan says, went damnable hard, yet the key did open it, and all the others too. And so by this blessed act of memory, poor Christian and hopeful were set free. Observe that the text records an act of memory on the part of Jeremiah. This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. In the previous verse he tells us that memory had brought him to despair. My soul hath them still in remembrance and is humbled in me. And now he tells us that this same memory brought him to life and comfort yet again. This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. We lay it down then as a general principle that if we would exercise our memories a little more, we might, in our very deepest and darkest distress, strike a match which would instantaneously kindle the lamp of comfort. There is no need for God to create a new thing in order to restore believers to joy. If they would prayerfully rake the ashes of the past, they would find light for the present. And if they would turn to the book of truth and to the throne of grace, their candle would soon shine as aforetime. I shall apply that general principle to the cases of three persons. First of all, to the believer who is in deep trouble. This is no unusual position for an heir of glory. A Christian man is seldom long at ease. The believer in Jesus Christ, through much tribulation, inherits the kingdom. If you will kindly turn to the chapter which contains our text, you will observe a list of matters which recollection brought before the mind of the prophet Jeremiah and which yielded him comfort. First stands the fact that however deep may be our present affliction, it is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed. This is a low beginning, certainly. The comfort is not very great, but when a very weak man is at the bottom of the pyramid, if he is ever to climb it, you must not set him a long step at first. Give him but a small stone to step upon the first time, and when he gets more strength, then he will be able to take a greater stride. Now consider, thou son of sorrow, where thou mightest have been. Look down now through the gloomy portals of the grave to that realm of darkness, which is as the valley of the shadow of death, full of confusion and without any order. Canst thou discern the sound as of the rushing to and fro of hosts of guilty and tormented spirits? Dost thou hear their dolorous wailing, of their fearful gnashing of teeth? Can thine ears endure to hear the clanking of their chains, or thine eyes to see the fury of the flames? There are forever shut out from the presence of God and shut in with devils and despair. They lie in flames of misery so terrible that the dream of a despairing maniac cannot realize their woe. God hath cast them away and pronounced his curse upon them, appointing them blackness of darkness forever. This might have been thy lot. Contrast thy present position with theirs, and thou hast cause rather to sing than to lament. Why should a living man complain? Have you seen those foul dungeons of Venice which are below the watermark of the canal, where after winding through narrow, dark, stifling passages, you may creep into little cells in which a man can scarcely stand upright, where no ray of sunlight has ever entered since the foundations of the palace were laid, cold, foul, and black with damp and mildew, the fit nursery of fever and abode of death? And yet, those places it were luxury to inhabit compared with the everlasting burnings of hell. It were an excess of luxury to lost spirits if they could lie there with moss growing on their eyelids in lonely misery, if they might but escape for a little season from a guilty conscience and the wrath of God. Friend, you are neither in those dungeons nor yet in hell. Therefore pluck up courage and say, it is of the Lord's mercy we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. Slender comfort this may be, but then if this flame shall yield but little heat, it may lead to somewhat better. When you are kindling your household fire, before which you hope to sit down with comfort, you do not first expect to kindle the lumps of coal, but you set some lighter fuel in a blaze, and soon the more solid material yields a genial glow. So this thought, which may seem so light to you, may be as the kindling of a heavenly fire of comfort for you who now are shivering in your grief. Something better awaits us. For Jeremiah reminds us that there are some mercies, at any rate, which are still continued. His compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. You are very poor and have come down for wealth. This is very hard. Still you are in good health. Just walk into the hospital, ask to be permitted to witness the work done in the operating room. Sit down by one bedside and listen to the story of pain and weariness, and surely you will leave the hospital feeling, I thank God that with all my poverty I have not sickness to complain of. And therefore I will sing of the mercies which I enjoy.